Well, good morning. And we made it by the skin of our teeth this morning because we needed to upload a couple of videos, and it takes a bit of time, this upload and download. Keith Hayes, Mirador Television, Lewes, and broadcasting from the Albion studio on Albion Street in the heart of Lewes, to locally, but also to the rest of the world. And a very good morning to everybody, wherever you happen to be. It's now exactly 7 o'clock. And I'm once again going to be absolutely slaughtered by our good senior editor, Claudine, who has very carefully made some intros and countdowns, and I've never had time to find them. So I'm going to have to do that today, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. But here we go with today. Shout it loud. There you are. That's us, Mirador Television. And another hour this morning, hopefully, as long as the gods are with us and technology is. Paul Fowle will be joining us, our economics and business editor. And we're going to have, since he's new to this first live thing, we'll just have a gentle chat this morning. But Paul is a very, very well-versed man in the goings-on of the economy, whether it be at the corner shop when you buy an egg, or whether it be the stock markets crashing or zooming or booming or whatever. So Paul will be with us in a very short period of time, we hope, well, at about 20 past the hour. So here I am with you through until 8 o'clock, when Mark Payton will join us. And I'm feeling a little lightheaded this morning. Perhaps I got too much sleep. No, I didn't. I woke up at 4 o'clock. I didn't have to get up until 5, but I woke up at 4 o'clock. So it wasn't sleep. But hopefully I'll manage to get through to the end of today. And let's see what we can do. And we're looking forward to seeing you. And can I just say thank you to Seaford Rotary Club yesterday. They invited me to speak to them. It was on Zoom. They're a really good bunch of people, and I was able to outline exactly what small-scale television is about, where it can go, and what Mirador is about, and where it wants to take things. Very enjoyable half hour or so. A couple of very good questions, and I hope that one way or another we all satisfied a bit of curiosity. Right, what's going on? Well, Mr. Johnson is going to visit Scotland because actually the government is in trouble there. The Scottish independence has always been a thorny issue, and there was a referendum, and the Scots rejected. Let's see. Close, I think. The Scots rejected independence, not by much, but they rejected it. But Nicola Sturgeon, their fiery leader of the Scottish Nats, won't let things go. And there are elections coming up, I think it's in May, in Scotland, as a devolved government. And the polls at the moment show that she'll sweep the board. And if she does, she says that gives her a mandate to have another plebiscite or another referendum on whether Scotland should depart. And it's going to cause all sorts of problems for all sorts of people. But there you are. We live in, at the moment, in times of great emotion, particularly since life has not been easy for the past year and doesn't look as if it's going to get much easier for the coming year. But anyway, we'll go back to that in a moment. So Boris is hightailing it north, and he's going to talk to the party faithful and say, come on, get cracking, chaps, because we don't want Scotland to disappear into, well, actually, it would disappear into some sort of independence, I suppose. There's no guarantee that the EU would take it on. And in fact, rumour hath it that there are more countries now who want to leave the EU than join it. So it may be that Nicola Sturgeon has got it wrong on every level. But then who am I? I'm no politician. They have to look at these things with data that they know and we don't. It'll be interesting to see what she does with it and how it goes, and whether Boris has any impact. A slight fall in the corona rate. Happy to report it's on the downward curve. The big problem is that the last time that happened, everybody threw their hats into the air, rushed off to the seaside, hugged and kissed, and immediately went up. So please treat any data that there is a fall in the corona rate with a little bit of caution. I mean, I love being kissed by ladies and hugged and all the rest of it. I really do. But I'm willing, bravely, to forego that if, in fact, what it means is that I'm not going to pass on the virus. Now, I've had the shot. I've had my arm punctured. It wasn't at all painful. In fact, I didn't even know it had been done. I was chatting to the nurse, and suddenly they said, "You can go now." But that is one of the big problems. Every time that we relax and take our foot off the accelerator, is then it shoots back up. And 100,000 people having died is, and Boris feeling very sorry for everybody, including himself yesterday, because of that figure. I think we need to treat everything with caution. We don't want people to die. It doesn't matter what age, young or old, we do not want people to die. Life is too precious. It's so enjoyable. But anyway, watch out for moves on that front. Now, let us go to some nitty-gritty and specifics, because with any luck at all, we might just have a little schools. Now what should we say? The suggestion is that schools, because actually nothing is ever said directly. Nobody ever wants to put anything, set it in stone. I don't blame them, because things keep changing. But March will be the earliest date for schools to go back, but they could easily go back in March. And I think that will start to give some comfort to people who, and particularly parents, who've been trying to teach their children at home. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and you'll get some people who will be fastidious about it, some parents, and others who will find it a chore. The kids will start to play up because they're bored, they can't get out. The kids can't go to the pub. Oh dear, dear, dear! What did I just say? Nobody can go to the pub, so March is the earliest. But at least we now are getting some sort of what should we say, word from the government about what might and might not happen, because that was one of the most confusing things over the last couple of days, with different people saying different things and demands being made. So there we are, schools. Now, is a three-pronged attack, according to Boris. And the next thing that could possibly happen is, let's see, yes. Oh, yes, indeed. shops, non-essential shops, could open in April. Now, I keep saying could, because these are merely suggestions, they're guesses by everybody involved, because nobody really knows what this damn virus is going to do, whether it's a new strain, whether the vaccines will work totally. I'm just looking down. I've got a little button undone on my shirt, so forgive me if I just do that up, because otherwise I'll have somebody yelling at me, I expect. And so the shops could open in April, and we'll be able to get back to going to what are called non-essential shops. So that's more good news. But then, music to my ears and the ears of many, many people, I am absolutely sure, is that in May, these could be open. Oh, happy day. I'm not sure that if they open, there won't be the restrictions that we had last time. There are more restaurants than pubs, but at least it's a step in the right direction. And pubs and restaurants are available. I mean, it is funny. I go to work. I'm in the studio. I'm only 200 yards from where I live, so a quick dash doesn't endanger anybody. I don't bump into anybody anyway at the hour I get in. But what do you do at lunchtime? Take a lunch break. Oh, but there's nowhere to go. Yeah, you can go and get a cup of coffee and you can sit in the precinct. But then you've got to socially distance, so there are only so many people that can sit in the precinct. Um, Life has been very, very tough. So if both the shops and the restaurants and the pubs open in the next little while, we will all be, in my opinion, the better for it. Now, I say in the next little while because we're just coming to the end of January, but we've still got February and March. March, okay, 6 weeks perhaps before the schools start to come, but it's still 2 months before we get our shops back, and almost 3 months before we get the pubs. And that takes a big chunk out of a lot of people's lives, probably mine. I'm not sure that I can do without my little tipple. Oysters and champagne, oysters and champagne. Right. Now, outside, I have to say that this morning as I came into work, it was dry and it wasn't that cool either. The official forecast is that it should be raining about now, but it's not. And that it's going to get drier and drier as the day goes on until in the end we will hit a high of 13 degrees. It's been slowly creeping up over the week. When we started the week, it was something like 0 to 5, and then it crept up to 7, and then to 9, and now it's at 13. Now it's going to be very breezy with that. So don't wear a hat like this because it's very difficult to keep on your head. Mine's glued on. So that's the weather that you can expect. But let's take a look at those people who are in the business of providing goods for us the moment that essential shops or non-essential shops are allowed to open. And that may be in April.
My name's Yad and welcome to my shop, Bell & Co. We specialise in mid-century furniture, 50s, 60s and 70s mainly. One of our main ethoses here is very much encouraging people to look at older pieces of furniture rather than buying new or buying flat pack. We're very much environmentally based in trying to encourage people to reuse and reimagine objects, and so we spend a lot of time restoring pieces, reupholstering pieces and bring them back to life generally. They're just fantastic to look at and they're just beautiful items at really, really affordable prices.
Now, with any luck at all, I should be seeing on my secret little screen here the head and shoulders of Paul Fowle appearing. Paul is not the greatest at technology any more than I am. So between the two of us, we'll have to probably faff around to get him up. But hopefully we will, and he will be able to give us the benefit of his wisdom when it comes to the economy. It's easy to say economy. People are always talking about the economy, but basically, I mean, the economics is really that I go to a store and I pay X amount for something and I take it home and I eat it or I use it or whatever. And then if I go back the next day, it costs more. And I say, why is that? And then we suddenly realize what inflation is. So it's that sort of down to earth view of this sort of thing that we hope. So I hope that Paul can manipulate the technology and join us. But in the meantime, why don't we just take a look at something as local? And there's a bit of dearth of local news this morning. Well, we could rehash some of the court cases, I suppose, but what's the point? Everybody's read those and they thrashed to death. But I'm happy to say that the police are going to get a boost because it's been decided locally that in our council taxes that the most that can be increased in the council tax will be increased for the police. And the police are having an increasingly difficult time during lockdown. Nobody likes them very much because they have to be the heavy hand. They have to be the person who, they have to be the group that come in and say, oi, 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 you can't do that. Don't care if you're enjoying yourself at this party, at this rave. You can't do it. You're threatening the rest of society. And they have to break it up, and they've become very unpopular. And apparently, road crime is on the increase as well. And I'm not a bit surprised about that. Because during first lockdown, you could cross the road without any fear whatsoever. During this lockdown, the traffic seems to have been almost as voluminous, if that's the word, as it normally is. And so the poor old police, once again, they've got to look at that. And we have to put up with him. The biggest council tax increase will be to pay for the police, and it will go up as much as is allowed by the law. Now, this is where I suppose that we're going to see a clash. We're going to see a clash between those people who say, "Hey, hang on, we've done without a hell of a lot. We've had our backs to the wall, and now you're saying that we're going to get an increase in council tax." Oh, excuse me, inevitable, I'm afraid. We are going to, somebody's going to have to pay for. I better have a little sip of water, I think, because I'm hiccuping. And it is quite early in the morning still. It's 7:19. And the interesting thing about viewing figures is that most people don't start to watch morning television until 7:30. This is a bit of a barren wasteland. And that's why I can more or less talk about what I want to, what I feel like, and so on. And what I want to do right now is I want to give everybody who has supported this television station through tough times the benefit of letting you know what sort of goods they serve.
Hi, I'm Elisa from Capturing Tales, and we've been open here for about 2.5 years. We specialise in focaccia genovese, which is this focaccia, like that. And my mum and I went to Italy, to Genova, to learn to make focaccia, which is an ancient art. Then we do little salad pots, sauces, fresh pasta, stuff to take home and cook. We try to get locally to support other local businesses. We have a few cocktails in bottles, which is why we're called Catch and Tales. We're open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, to come by and see us anytime.
So there you are, another one to head for in April. When, that last one, of course, is a restaurant. I think perhaps it doesn't open until the pubs do in May, but nonetheless, keep an eye on it because it's a lovely little shop, and lovely people down there. And I hope that you'll give it full support because it gave you full support through us during lockdown. And we really do like to pay back those people who thought about us during this tough time. And these are the people that have. And there's one more that I think we should pay attention to.
Roundabout has been going for 35 years. We're a dress agency, so what we do is we sell on behalf of people. The customer gets 50% of the price and we take 50%. The online shop is roundaboutlewes.com. I try and update it, daily when things come in. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 9:30 till 4:30. So if you're looking for gifts or a dress for yourself, why not visit?
Well, now Paul says he didn't get these invitations, so give me just half a second because I think it is very important that we try to get Paul on. No, it's all up in the air. I'm going to actually get us off the air if I'm not careful. I'm still here, so forgive me. We're trying to get something to Paul Fowle, and we'll do that in the next break that we've got. There are a couple of things that came back to us from yesterday. One is the schools, but the other is that apparently there's a bit of a punch-up going on about the courts. Still, should we or shouldn't we sort of speed them up because there are all sorts of what should we say, lineups, stack ups, everything is slowed down, and we're not convicting or letting free people who are charged with some sort of crime. Now, one of the things that I quite liked about the clip that we got yesterday for courts was it was quite informative. If you've never been in, here's one of them.
Prosecution in this case, and my learned friend, who I named, appears on behalf of the defense. I then outline the prosecution case, explaining each offense and the evidence the jury will hear in proving this. I will state that it is the prosecution's responsibility to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of the offense that they are before the court for. I will introduce the first prosecution witness. I will then ask a series of questions with regards to the evidence they have given in a statement to the police. This is known as examination in chief. Upon completion of this, the defense may ask the witness a series of questions. This is known as cross-examination. Upon completion of the cross-examination, I may be given the opportunity to ask a further series of questions to the witness. This is known as re-examination.
Well, there we are. I'm still trying to get hold of Paul. Let's see, Paul. tap the link. Let's see if that works for him. Oh, I just love all this technology. Let's see if we can get him. He's a very good chap, and it makes a good deal of common sense. So we'll carry on for the moment. But the issue really is should we speed up the courts? And we had a little chat about this yesterday. And of course, the big danger is in speeding up something like the courts is it may be that you open up the door for two things. One, a miscarriage of justice, because you rush it through and not everything is done according to Hoyle. Or afterwards, because you rushed it through, anybody who doesn't like the verdict has got pretty good grounds for appeal. So are we suddenly going to find that the appeal court has got more cases because of bypassing the system? It's a very difficult one indeed. Right, where are we? It's 7:26, and let's talk to. Let's just go through the. Oh dear, I've got hiccups. Well, let's see. That probably is Paul. Yes, good morning, Paul. Oh, hang on. We've got to. Yes, good morning, Paul.
Yeah, okay. So hold it. I've got your wait a minute.
Just click on the link. Here we go. Live television as it should be. Trying hard to get our guest on. Yes. How are you doing?
Okay. Is it streamlined? Is it when I do the first code you sent me?
Yeah. Just tap on it. Just click on it.
I'll do that. No problem.
Okay. Everybody's listening. You've got the whole world listening to this conversation. So don't swear. Whatever you do, don't swear.
Yeah, the code you gave me actually passed. It doesn't do anything, Keith. It's a streamlined one, or StreamYard.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's right. You're into your broadcast studio.
Yes.
Okay, it's come through now. So allow. Yeah, I think I've got it now. Then.
All right.
Use your microphone. Yeah. Okay, we've done it, Keith.
You've done it. Well, we should see you. We should see you up here shortly, with any luck at all.
Do I need to do anything else, Keith?
I don't think so. You tap on it, and it should come through to me, and then I just put you on the air. So let's see how it works, Paul.
Can you see me? Okay.
Not yet. No, can't see you yet.
All right, let's go.
Right. Okay. Well, Paul's struggling to get on. He's doing the right thing. It just isn't working for some reason, and who knows why? Because things are very odd with some of these things. But hopefully he'll appear in a little while, and we can get him on board, and we should try and share a screen. No. That's not working. Right, okay. There are all sorts of... if you try to do these things on a live broadcast, of course, it never works because you're always tapping the wrong thing and it comes up. So forgive us if we actually are trying very hard to bring Paul on, but what's supposed to be happening isn't. And of course, that's always the way. I have no idea why. We don't... it's supposed to work and it doesn't, and it is the frustrating thing about the internet and about computers. So I'm going to have to carry on for a little while. We'll see where we are, but Paul is making a manful effort to get on board, and let's hope that something happens. We get him because he's certainly a man of some wisdom. All right, let's go back over the headlines then. Boris is going north of the border. Oh my goodness me! He better not wear his kilt because his Nicola Sturgeon, the leader of the Scottish Nats, is after whatever is under that kilt. As far as Boris is concerned, she doesn't want to take any prisoners. Now, there's a lot of ill feeling about the fact that she would take this opportunity to spring another referendum, plebiscite. But she's going to argue, well, look, I was swept back into power, and it looks from the polls as if she's going to be. And therefore, that gives me the mandate to do all sorts of other things. And so as a consequence, we just have to give her some leeway, I suppose, because her argument is reasonably sound. And the issue really is that what is Scotland going to do if it leaves, if it departs? I mean, the first thing is that the hard border that so much was made of in Northern Ireland and Ireland because of us leaving the EU will become an issue between us and the Scots. And do we all of us want a hard border between Scotland and England? I mean, that's the consequence, I would have thought, natural consequence. I mean, Mark Payton is a Scot. You can tell from the way he talks. And it'll be interesting to see what he thinks when we talk to him a little later. It would have been interesting to see what Paul thought, but we just simply are not getting him through. And I don't understand why. But we can only do what we can do. And technology. And you don't want to hear me rabbit on about that. Okay. Boris is going to visit Scotland. May, once again, will turn out to be a pivotal month for a lot of things. Not least of which is May is when the pubs and restaurants may or may not come back into full stream. And I must say that I have missed this sort of thing. Well, look at that. We've done it. Look at the technology.
Podcast suite that did it, Keith.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Yeah, sorry about that.
It just shows, you see, we are men of perseverance. We didn't say no. It didn't work to start with. We had a little conversation which the whole world heard on our phone, and here you are.
I know.
Paul Fowle, by the way, is no stranger to Mirador. He's been with us for quite some time. He is a star performer on Sunday night round table discussion, which we'll be resuming very shortly. And he guides us very carefully, and we'll be doing regular spots for Mirador Television and Mirador Television Lewes throughout the coming year. That is, if we all last throughout the coming year. Right, Paul. I mean, one of the things that obviously I've got to ask you, and you're asked many a time, but with things changing almost daily in terms of the way the government is handling things, is what effect are all these things with lockdown, not lockdown, shops open, shops maybe, pubs closed, what effect is that having on the economy?
Yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy and sinister theories, Keith. But yeah, it's damaging, Keith. I think when it first broke out, COVID in March last year, I think it would be the general consensus amongst economists is that 6 months, 9 months is pushing it. We're on a year now, Keith. There's a golden rule in business that you should always keep 6 months cash flow. Big companies do that. Small companies can't do that. So actually, at the moment, I think up till Christmas, we were probably still okay. If it ends soon, fine. You write the 3 magic words or 4 magic words that you and I know. Confidence in the market now comes into play, Keith. So the confidence is damaged. Whatever anyone says now, people are now extremely worried, and it's looking. I didn't think it would go. It's not going downhill yet, but I think the public are exasperated by lockdown. B, they realise the economy and business is suffering, so they've got a double whammy.
Right. Now, you say business is suffering, and if you read the headlines, of course, as you hear that Nissan is doing this and ICI is doing that. But I suppose on a program like this, we're concerned with the high street. And a lot of muttering is some shops will never come back. The chains like Debenhams and so on has just taken a hit. How is the high street going to fare?
I suppose you could compare it to people working from home and people in the office. I think the big stores will survive, Keith. I think you'll always have people wanting to go to see the wear live. Online is doing very well, but there'll always come a blip, Keith. Online serves one thing. I think in most people, when COVID is over, will probably be delighted to get back to the shops. I think we are. As with offices and on site, you can do both. You can go to the high street. You can also go online. But we are people who should use our legs. So I still see it will be decimated, Keith. There'll be empty shops, maybe 1 in 3 or 4 down the high street. But I think it'll still be there. You've still got the buildings, still got the infrastructure. People look. The markets haven't changed since Jesus's day, if you could argue. So therefore, people like to get out. So yeah, it's going to hit the high street people worst, but they'll still be there. Obviously, Debenhams collapsed, Philip Green's empire. You'll get that. What the repercussions are in the short term, I don't know, Keith. But it's a crucial time now. Now this new year.
Yeah, I mean, can we? Quite often what happens is that when you go through trauma like this, as if we've been through trauma like this in the past, but is that one day you're used to going into a shop and it's a greengrocer, and then you have a crisis and the shop stays open, but the next time you go in, it's an ironmonger. Can you see a change in the face of the high street, you think, or will some of the old favourites still come back?
I think some of the old favourites will be there, Keith. I mean, in small market towns and that, where you've got the local ironmonger, can they survive the next 3 months, Keith? I mean, I know up in the Isles of Scotland, one of my friends did a study of it. The Isles of Scotland, the Isle of Mull, Skye, they're so remote that if a shop fails, then they have to get emergency supplies from the mainland. So it is hitting small parts. But the places like Brighton, London, they'll always be there. You know, the city is closed down at the moment, Keith, as you know, but it will come back. The buildings are empty, but there must be a city. So it's lose some, gain some. It really is tough. But what I will say, which I think the audience will probably recognise, is the big corporates are the ones who are really having a field day. The Amazons, the Googles, and as we've discussed in previous discussions, that's not a good thing. You don't want monopolies like that.
No, quite. Just switching a little bit, if I may, because Boris is off to Scotland today to raise the flag. But I was posing the question while we were still trying to get you on the air, is what will happen if Scotland does decide that it wants to go after May, we're seeing a Brexit that is actually Scotland leaving the UK. I mean, she's determined, this lady, Mrs. Sturgeon, and I mean, my guess, first of all, was, and now you can tell me if I'm totally wrong, but my guess is that if we had a hard border, it would cause similar problems to the border issue in Northern Ireland. But now I don't want to prejudge anything that you're going to say. What's your view of what's going on up there?
You're spot on if that happens. My own view, personally, having I had a Scottish mother, so I've got an interest here. I'm finding that I think the press G'd Sturgeon up too much. I think it'll be close. I still believe that the Scots will be independent, because at the end of the day, when you get to the polls, it's money in your pocket in the economy. And there's no way that Scotland can have a great time without sponsorship by England rather. The two go hand in hand. So I speak to my friends in the islands now. The Highlands and Islands in Scotland are very patriotic and pro-Sturgeon. There is a slight swing, Keith. So I think I'll wait and see, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they know where their bread is buttered, Glaswegians and Edinburgh. And Glasgow, even people I've talked to in Glasgow, are fed up with all the politics around it. Look, we formed the union in 1701. It stood the test of time. I don't believe it will go there. But if it does, Keith, you're absolutely right. We'll have the same situation as we had in Northern Ireland. It's going to be a bugger's muddle, as they say in the country. That would break up the United Kingdom. That would be damaging for all the economies there. So we're better together rather than split. And I think Sturgeon will realise that in the end, that it's great, Scotland, and yes, but it hasn't got much industry compared to us, and it needs England at the moment. So I would say, don't panic yet. Don't press a panic button. As for Brexit, that's a hell of a difficult thing. It's going to be stuck in administration for a long time, Keith. We probably won't see again. The delay in all the paperwork, etc., will damage industry and damage the small people. So it's not very good. So if Scotland and EU goes wrong, then we've got major problems. But at the moment, I keep on saying to you on previous times, and Britain's economy is as robust, if not better, than every other European economy. If you look at the stats, but it is being damaged. But Germany's in trouble, France in trouble, Spain, Italy, the Club Med, as we call it, is totally bust. So again, I'm a realist, but I think the doom mongers are kind of having their say too much. I would say that I'm optimistic that it will sort out, but Brexit will be now protracted. It has to work because it has to work.
Right. Then what's your take on the EU? Because we hear rumours about, France being the leader in this. Perhaps we should get out now that the Brits are out. We don't want to be paying for all these little satellite countries and all their fancy schemes. How safe is the EU, or how shaky is it?
Well, as you know, I've worked for the EU for a year, for the UK government in Eastern Europe. I did a years ago, so I know how the EU works. There's a lot of flim-flam and lots of posturing, Keith. From my German banking friends I know, we have a kind of good relationship with Germany, and Germany and Britain are the two biggest economies now. France would love the leadership, so there's going to be a bit of a political shebang. But I think Germany and Britain they're the two big economies and the two stable economies, and they will have the say. Otherwise, you're going to have a split Europe. You've got the Hungarians wanting to probably get out of Europe eventually. You've got Eastern Europe taking a different stance. Europe's breaking up, Keith, in front of our eyes, and to blame Britain or Germany is wrong, but Britain and Germany and to some extent France have been paying for the rest of Europe. It's a club, as you say. Would you join a club where you are buying everybody else the drinks? Would you join? In other words, if you've got Britain and Germany and France at the bar, let's use that, everyone else is getting the drinks then, because Germany's got so much exposure in Greece, in the countries, that they're getting fed up. So you've got each country, I think, especially with COVID, our countries are now actually looking internally, Keith. I think they're trying to get their own house in order, and certainly Germany's economy is rocking and reeling. So Deutsche Bank affair. So basically, it's a very complex situation, but it will unravel because I think it has to unravel. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I would love to be a member if you're somebody who's coming in and you're going to buy the drinks. I'm there. I'm there. Look, it's very good to have you on, and as usual, you make a great deal of sense. I will warn you that Mark Peyton, who joins us at 8 o'clock, was probably watching, and he's probably said, "Oh, I need to talk to Paul as well. I need to talk to Paul." So stand by just in case you get another invitation. I know that you've got a client that you've got to satisfy at 10 o'clock, but we may invite you back in the second hour because that's our serious hour. But it's good to have you on. You are part of the team. Get used to his face. He knows Lewes like the back of his hand. And in fact, actually, you are a rare combination because, you've worked for banks, you're an economist, you financially, you understand absolutely everything, but you were once a policeman.
I was a policeman for 6 years. That's how I began. I got a LSC UCL first class degree, and then I became a policeman. And people say, "Why did you do that?" Well, it was a family affair, and by being a policeman, it meant I can deal with the great and good in the city as equal. It gives you, as a policeman, you're confident in business, Keith. So if I was to meet somebody like, I've met Branson a couple of times business-wise, and I'm not. I suppose the police gave me a grounding that keep things simple. Don't let people get up your nose, etc. And I just treat everyone equally, Keith, and it seems to work because the city is it can be a knife-wielding place, the city, where you get stabbed in the back, as you know, as we all know. But that was the. So I had a good grounding in the police and a good grounding in the city, which God, it makes me probably a strange person.
Well, I like strange people, as you well know. Actually, when I got up this morning, I mull over a lot of things to see what we might and might not discuss on this program, but I couldn't help it. I had to put up on my Facebook account just a tiny little blog or a post or whatever, and basically it said, "I don't understand why the government is making all this fuss about mental health, because if in my experience, it's governments that drive people mad."
That's absolutely right.
Paul, we're going to say thank you to some of the people that support us. Good to have you with us, and you'll be soon a very familiar face to the people that watch this program. And I spoke to, I made a little talk to the Seaford Rotary Club yesterday via Zoom. Lovely people, very warm and welcoming, and it was a good opportunity to outline what Mirador is all about. But I said to them, one of our ambitions with this is at the local level is to be ultimately that we will cover from sort of Hastings through to Falmer, up to almost Gatwick and across to Tunbridge Wells. And I hope that we'll do that, and that you'll be part of it. Anyway, here are some nice people.
My name's Yad, and welcome to my shop, Bell & Co. We specialise in mid-century furniture, 50s, 60s and 70s mainly. One of our main ethoses here is very much encouraging people to look at older pieces of furniture rather than buying new or buying flat pack. We're very much environmentally based in trying to encourage people to reuse and reimagine objects, and so we spend a lot of time restoring pieces, reupholstering pieces, and bring them back to life generally. They're just fantastic to look at, and they're just beautiful items at really, really affordable prices.
Well, caught you relaxing there, Paul. Yeah, you weren't expected to come back on, were you? But I'm keeping you around because who knows? As things go by, we just might find something where we can get benefit from your comment again. But let's look after another lady.
Elisa from Catching Tales, and we've been open here for about 2.5 years. We specialise in focaccia genovese, which is this focaccia, like that. And my mum and I went to Italy, to Genova, to learn to make focaccia, which is an ancient art. Then we do little salad pots, sauces, fresh pasta, stuff to take home and cook. We try to get locally to support other local businesses. We have a few cocktails in bottles, which is why we're called Catch and Tales. We're open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday. To come by and see us anytime.
Okay. Oh, you disappeared, Paul. All right. Oh no, you're still there. God bless you. Well, just one more lady I think that we must acknowledge, and here she is. Now, I mean, you are a real Lothario. I mean, I know the ladies chase you all over the place. So this one is for you, so you can choose them a nice gift.
Roundabout has been going for 35 years. We're a dress agency, so what we do is we sell on behalf of people. The customer gets 50% of the price and we take 50%. The online shop is roundaboutlewes.com. I try and update it, daily when things come in. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 9:30 till 4:30. So if you're looking for gifts or a dress for yourself, why not visit?
Well, there you go, Paul. You see, we're showing you all the places that once things
no,
you can go to. In the news this morning, there's a three-pronged attack that Boris is having on coronavirus. March for school, but the earliest date will be March for the schools.
Yeah.
Non-essential shops in April. And the pubs, May, and pubs and restaurants. Let me get your view on the pubs and restaurants. You might know that that's the thing that I always major on.
Yeah. Well,
do you think the pubs are going to ever change back to what they were? A place where, I mean, you mentioned the other day when we were chatting, you said, Keith, we used to go into the Rights of Man and we would stand at the bar and we'd have a couple of pints and a chat. And now we can't do that anymore. Well, we can't because they're closed. But even when they're open, they tend to become restaurants now. Do you think that we're ever going to return to the days of the pub?
Well, was it during the worst of COVID? Was it about 3 or 4 pubs or 5 pubs were closing every day, weren't they, around the country, Keith? My son, as you know, is a publican. He works. He runs 2 or 3 pubs, and he had no pay for the year. So I do think hospitality, which is 10% of the UK's GDP, I do think they've been overhammered. I think that without hospitality, you've actually got mental health issues, because my one gripe about the whole thing, I'm not going to blame anybody about this, is the social distancing situation, which is farcical. And I don't see that I think that when we look back at this pandemic, from my understanding of what the BMA have said, it won't be one of the biggest. I, as you know, had COVID. It was like heavy flu to me. I was probably very lucky, but I didn't suffer much pain. But when I had pneumonia and bronchitis as a boy, it was devastating. So in the great pantheon of pandemics, and an eminent doctor who I know has said this, it is not the major pandemic. The Spanish flu was a major pandemic. E. coli had its spread, was worse. The only thing this has got in its favour is it mutates, but each time it mutates, it loses its strength. So I think the Pfizer spokesman, whatever, who said that let's get it in perspective. It's gone on, but it will come to an end. Well, the problem is Boris is to me, I think he's done good job overall. No prime minister should have been saddled with this. But you can't keep on going from lockdown, oh, you'll have a Christmas, lockdown, oh, by the way, it should be okay by March, oh, by the way, the vaccine's been delayed. That's what it's been like. That's where it's all gone wrong, the logistics of it. But I think everyone's worked well together. But I quote Kafka and I quote Orwell. I feel myself like I'm living in an open prison, which means that I'm a prisoner by self-isolation, but I'm allowed out to get a coffee. And if you talk to other people, that's life. That is life.
Exactly.
I didn't leave my home for about 14 days over the COVID thing, Keith. Saw nobody, spoke to her. So, I don't know. There's a balance here. You can understand any government being cautious, but there comes a time when a government has to make a decision. It might cost some lives, but they might have to say the economy is being ruined. The cases are at I know it's wrong to say this, an acceptable level. We have to go back to normality. If you don't do that, then you're putting people and an economy through for 10 years hard labour. So how do you square the circle? Healthy economy. You'd like to accommodate both, but you can't. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yes, I mean you're quite right. Nobody, let alone the prime minister, should have to face the challenge of what they've had to face, and perhaps we're being a bit unkind every time that we voice a criticism of what they're doing. Can't be easy, that's for sure. No. Can't be easy, at least. Tell me, Paul, just a question of that there is a slight fall in the corona rate.
Yes.
And whenever this sort of announcement is made, people go out and start to hug and kiss. I made the point earlier that I love hugging and kissing, and I know that you do too, and not each other, I may say.
No,
we both prefer ladies hugging and kissing us. But how do you feel about these statements? Okay, it's slowly coming down, because as a copper, you must feel for these policemen that had to go in and break up raves. And be spat upon, and you're stopping us having a good time.
Well, frankly, with they're still trying to get 20,000 new policemen. The police, I'm not saying that police aren't fit for purpose, not because they're not good, but there's too few of them, and there's no way they can patrol or marshal social distancing. I was near the beach when obviously in Brighton, the 1,000 people got there. You had 3 policemen dealing with 1,000 people. What I suspect, and I'm not speaking for the police here, is that they've probably given up on many things. They're not going to check many things. They'll check the obvious garden party, but actually it won't achieve much. You're right. The cases go down, and then, as you say, I'm not having to go at the carriers here, but the carriers are generally 16 to 25. That's proven by the BMA. So I'm only quoting government statistics. Obviously, they're going to think, and they're young. I don't blame them in some ways. Well, hold it. Cases are down. We've got a bit. Wow, let's go. As you say, let's go and have 700 students in university having a party. So the problem is the government has to recognise it can't control these things unless they go to an Orwellian world, which none of us want. So if they can't contain it, it means that they've got to give us an idea of when this will happen. If the second vaccine, will that be the catch-all? It's tough, but I think they've mucked up on the PR in many ways, Keith. We're all having a go at them, but actually, what would you do if you're in Boris's seat? It's a nightmare situation. Does that make sense? But I sense that mental health issues will be the big thing afterwards. I had a friend ring me up the other day, almost in tears. He's having a bad time with his wife and children. He's a very successful businessman, and it breaks my heart. But that's going to be the long-term damage.
I don't know whether you can see, but Mark Payton has joined us. Yeah. So, Paul, if you've got a few more extra minutes, you could get into some sensible conversation as opposed to the very light-hearted view that I take about these things. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. How are you? How are you
not
both?
Too bad at all. We have Paul Powell with us. he's been. Well, we had some problems getting him on, but we beat the system and we got him on. And I've asked him if he can hang on just for a minute or two to have a chat to you, because you the two of you can be serious. Now, I always have a bit of fun with Paul. Well, I have a bit of fun with you too, but you know that I'm the lightweight. I see things in an amusing context, even when sometimes they're not. So here we go. Mark looks at some newspaper headlines to have a little chat, and this is really his hour. So, Mark, it's 8:01. Yes, officially, you're on.
Oh, I'm on. Okay. Well, I'm not sure what you've been talking about up until my arrival, but I just thought I'd run through what the headlines are saying, and it's following that very familiar theme of COVID. It's very hard to get away from it. So let's see if we can get it to come up on the screen with all of us. Here we go. All the papers are all going generally with the story of the EU is trying to take our vaccine. EU demands British vaccines. EU demands UK COVID vaccines from AstraZeneca to do the shortfall. The Daily Mail, no, EU can't have our jabs. Wait your turn, selfish EU wants our vaccines. That's the Daily Express. You would probably expect that from the Express. The Guardian, a little bit calmer. Britain and EU in a row over who gets Oxford jab first. The Times says UK supply of vaccine more than is needed. So we've actually got too much. We could give some away. The Mirror, which is quite good. The Mirror leads with a different story. School's out until spring, although it's normally somewhere on other people's front pages. The Metro, My Miracle COVID Baby, and an article about Klum Jr., Heidi Klum's daughter. And the Sun, well, it goes for the £5,000 bunger party, which is quite a good story. Apparently, she offered cash to, I think, to the restaurant to let her have a party that she shouldn't have been having. I think I've got the full story here up on the Sun. It is interesting how, as usual, it is sort of one rule for me, another for you. So let's have see if we can get the.
Yeah, I must say that really is, and it's something I think we're going to have to watch post COVID. Is one rule for me and one rule for everybody else. I think there's going to be far less tolerance towards that attitude on behalf of the wealthy, particularly.
Well, yeah, it's my computer is not. That is to go. Anyway, I can get it to drop it in. No, the Sun is automatically taping me somewhere else. Let's just share it as it is. I don't know if you can see that. Rita Ora's team offered a restaurant £5,000 to break the lockdown for her 30th. This is a restaurant in Notting Hill during the second lockdown in November. And the venue bosses wiped the CCTV footage of the party, which was attended by various celebrities. Would you go to a party like that, Keith? If Rita sent you an email invitation, would you go to a party in Notting Hill like that?
Well, what I would do is I would say to her, "Could you pick me up, please?" And then when she got to the front door, I would pull her inside and shut it. And the other people could go and party, and Rita and I would indulge in some very intelligent conversation. Very intelligent. Now, what would you expect from an oyster and champagne man?
Well, I'm sure the oysters and champagne were very good at Rita's party.
Well, I suppose so. One would expect nothing less. How about you, Paul? Would you have gone?
Well, guys, the question I've got is, I mean, I've got a son who is I think reasonably intelligent. The problem is it's the carriers 16 to 25. Brighton is a university town, as you know, 3 universities, and if you're a teenager I'm going back to your and my years, Keith. As a teenager then, I'm a post-war baby. Would we have obeyed the regulations because in those days you did? I'm not sure, but probably would be. The teenagers these days are not, and again, it's not a criticism. They're exactly like us. Each generation is as good as the last. They've shown a bit of irresponsibility, but in some ways, can you blame them on a lockdown? These are young people who kind of want to get out. I agree. You know, Mark's pointed out with all the press that people like to be out. We're social creatures. Instead, we're living in a kind of quasi Orwellian world where you can go out and get a coffee on your own. But could you please self-isolate? Now, Mark, just to keep you up, I had COVID over Christmas. I didn't go out for about 14 days. I obviously obeyed everything, and it can be quite depressing. I'm an ex-policeman and a city banker, so I've got a pretty strong guy. But not seeing people, and Zoom doesn't do it for me. I think I've had all my friends who work in the city saying, you know, we can only take about a few months more. The mental health problem will be a problem, and if Rita carries on with her party and other people copy it, then that's going to be the worst. The worst thing, I was talking to Keith earlier, I'd like your opinion, is we go to cases going down, then a spike, and then cases. So is it the fact that people, that it's not the government's fault, but is it the fact that people are, the cases have gone down for a couple of days, let's go out and flout the rules. I'll tell you one thing which is interesting, and I live in Australia for 9 years. I still go back there quite a bit. In Australia, in Perth, which is where I lived with my then girlfriend, Keith, Sharon, in Perth, a guy was flouting the rules for a week. Australia police, and they are very good police, and that's me as UK policeman. He was warned about 7 times about a mask, other regulations. At the end of the day, arrested, 6 months in jail. Now, that might say, oh my God, you can't do that. But the whole of Perth population, probably to a man, said, absolutely right. I'm not saying we introduced that, but youngsters can't get away with just saying I'm a teenager, etc. I do that. You can kill somebody with COVID. So my view is that Australia got it right on closing the border on day one. We didn't. Australia got it right at the moment. The guy will get 2 months in jail, but it's a lesson and everyone listens to it. The police in Brighton, when they taught 3 policemen for 1,000 people on the beach, what's that about? As an ex-policeman, it's not possible to cope. So either the government has to introduce a lot tougher regulation because some people just don't listen. And Mark's absolutely right. I wonder what percentage of people just don't give a bugger about social distancing parties. So it's a problem. What do you do? The police can't cope. What do you do? I mean, I welcome Mark's thoughts because it is it's worrying. There's that age gap, which is the age group, which is still flouting the law. But do you blame them? I don't know what to do. It's a tough one, isn't it?
Oh, I agree. It is a very tough one. I think that the time to have been tough was a lot earlier than now. I think now we're progressing into a completely different phase.
Yes.
And I know there is the possibility of it spiking, and it'll spike probably in the younger generations. And it'll cause deaths within the younger generations because there's so many of them will get it. But it is aligned, I think, to the schools and colleges going back. But as the vaccine sort of kicks in fact, you can see it doesn't appear that we have done much right in this pandemic at all. But if you look at the figures in terms of the number of doses that have been given out, I mean, are like light years ahead of. And if you go to, well, I'll be bad and I'll choose France if I can find France.
Yeah,
Where's France?
yeah.
Okay, they've just given over 1 billion. I mean, we've done 7 times the amount, and the French are supposed to have a fantastic health service. Very good at doling out antibiotics, which probably isn't brilliant. But you know, some countries are lagging behind. Switzerland, 200,000. I think they've got a population of about 7 million or something. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Belgium. I mean, Belgium has had one of the worst death rates. They've only done 200,000. Ireland. I mean, they were spiking massively. I mean, it's quite amusing that the headline underneath here from Zeit Online, the German newspaper, is the best advertisement for Brexit was the slow and bureaucratic European Union, which I think in this particular instance, they have made a complete mess of it. But, you know, they've got other things right that we didn't get right. I mean, I think there should have been greater lockdown on the borders. I mean, the number of people who were flying in who had it weren't tested. I think it was all wrong. I mean, they've been happy to throw billions of pounds at some things, and and I think you're right with the lockdown. People have treated it and got very what's the right word? Tired of it, and they're more willing to break the rules. Unfortunately, as we all know, with this much more infectious version. It's the virus says laps up. That's fantastic. Give me more.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a very it's sad, but it's right. And young people, you know, you've got to feel for them being trapped up. But I mean, it's the same for all of us. You know, most of us, you know, unless you were housebound before, you were going out and you were doing stuff, and now you're doing pretty much nothing.
Yeah,
it's wonderful being able to sit on the sidelines and listen to you two actually chew over these things in a serious manner. And I'm sitting here trying to think, how can I puncture this bubble with a silly remark? But if I do, the chances are that everybody's going to say, "Oh, he's spoiling a good conversation." I mean, it is interesting what you're talking about, and I must say that one thing that flashed through my mind when you spoke about the war and being war babies is will there be things that people will forget existed? I mean, I'll give you an example. Is during when we came out of the war, I had no concept of what coffee was. It came out of a bottle called Camp. It was chicory essence, and you added milk, and it actually, in a funny way, it was delicious. I went to Canada and somebody said, a cup of coffee. I said, yes. And here something totally different came out of a jug. And I almost said, that's not coffee. But because I wasn't born before the war, I had no concept of the things that existed before it. Are we going to get a generation that will be pre-COVID and anti-COVID or post-COVID?
Well, I think COVID is going to be. I think COVID is going to be here for a long time. I mean, they're not saying it's going to go away, are they? It doesn't.
Mark, can I come in there? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. The COVID. That's absolutely right. COVID will exist all the time. It'll just be, as you say, mutation weakens it. But yeah, it'll just drain away. But it will always be there. So whereas, of course, smallpox, Spanish flu, and that went. So this is a virus that we're with us all the time. It'll just be in such small doses that it shouldn't really affect. That's what the BMA have been saying. I don't know what the truth is. I'm waiting for my vaccination. Is due on, I think, mid-February. So I just can't wait to get that one over. What I was going to ask you, Mark, on that aspect is this argument where Boris wanted to get the second one 3 weeks and the BMA have said, you know, or the medical profession have said, no, it should be later. Is there a danger that if they extend it too much after the first vaccine, that it might, you know, something might happen, like another strain comes along? Do you think that's reasonable, how they've done it in 2 stages?
I think it is reasonable. It's probably it will save more lives, is the theory behind it. And I don't think they would have signed up for that for those extensions of the time dates unless the people at the top thought it would be okay. But of course, it is not in line with what all the trials have how the trials have been done. It also means that, and in fact, I don't think we are going to have a lot of travel. But if, for instance, if you get your vaccination in, what did you think it was, March time? It could be another
late February, early March. Yeah.
March, yeah. So potentially you might not get your second one for another 3 months. So that's April, May, June.
That's the bad news. It's a lot. It's 3 months. A lot can happen in 3 months.
Yeah. So if you then go down to, I think there are 8 cohorts of people who are in line to get the vaccine, and after that, I wouldn't call it a free for all, but I haven't read anything to suggest how they're going to get it. But if you are 25 years old, let's say you're not going to get it until November. That means that does that mean you're not going to be able to go abroad, go on holiday, even if Spain, France, Italy, and the safer countries, shall we call them, or whatever they might be, that means you probably can't go abroad because you don't have a vaccination certificate. And even if you get it done in the first jab in October, are you going to have to wait till January 2022 to get the the second?
Think of the damage.
It's going to write off a lot of this year. But of course, the other thing is that even though you get the vaccine, it doesn't mean you can't carry the disease and give it to other people. I think that is maybe the secondary stage. That's if something is developed. Is there something out there that will do that? I'm not sure if there is.
I'm trying to think. You make a good point there, because again, the economy is going to be more damaged. So with the first vaccine, you've got to wait, presume that you would all stay isolated in lockdown, so the second vaccine comes 12 weeks later, but then, as you say, you're getting into tourism, summer season, etc. And as you say, so with this vaccination, would you presumably, are you allowed to travel once you've had the second vaccination? Are they saying, are you allowed to travel? Will they permit people, or you have to have another lockdown after the second vaccination? It all gets very elongated.
I know. I haven't read anything to clarify the situation. I know that EU are looking at vaccination passports. Probably an app or something that you would carry on your phone, which won't help you. Of course, there will be lots of people whose phone is too old. No doubt, it'll be a good ruse for the mobile phone companies to get new phones sold.
Yes.
But no, it does seem to be a grey area. We're not quite there yet, but I'm sure that there'll be lots of people throwing their hands up in horror that even though technically they can go somewhere, in fact, you can't. You haven't got a vaccination. You can't go.
Gentlemen, I'm going to interrupt there, because one of the things that you mentioned mental health and so on and so forth, and I'm just going to show you a little clip that I had, and I showed yesterday actually in the first hour, because to me this is melancholy. This is somewhere that you both know and love, and this is the way it is at the moment. Now, to me, and I deliberately didn't put any music on it because, to me, that's the sort of the sad thing, because we know just how vital and alive those premises usually are. There are several of us who are in here, and because we are in the business that we are, we're all yapping away, throwing in ideas and so on. There are people that come in to be interviewed. I mean, it's an exciting place. And at the moment, under COVID, it's desolate, melancholic. And how many people actually are facing that? That the place that they know that they leave at, say, 8 o'clock in the morning, they get in at 9 o'clock, and they meet their pals and they have a cup of coffee and a chat about various things before they tuck into their work. And all that has disappeared, or much of it has disappeared from our society. And that, to me, is the sort of thing that I think is going to be difficult to weather.
Yeah. Yeah, we're social creatures. Sorry, Mark. We're social creatures, and as I say, it's you can't help but feel controlled. I mean, I've listened to all these conspiracy theories. Oh, that's probably bunkum, but there is an element that as an ex-policeman, I would say we are in an open prison, and by that I mean we're getting food, etc. We can go out on our own. We can't see friends. We've got to be in a hub. It's a bit martial law type, but it has to be done. But I've got strong friends, friends who even police I know who are finding it very hard to control things. You've also got the nurses, the pressure on the nurses. As you know, Keith, I had a major operation last year, and they're wonderful, but nurses will start breaking down. So I think Boris, apart from the economy, which is vital, and health, I think he's got to look at what's happening to the mental health. That's going to be the big issue as time goes by. There's no easy
Mark,
answer.
we'll ask you to come up with your next story in a moment, but you know that I'm famous for listening to somebody and then suddenly it strikes me that I experienced something. But not many people know that in the 1960s, Pierre Trudeau, the then Prime Minister of Canada, declared martial law, and that Canada was subject to the suspension of all civil rights and so on and so forth. And the reason he did it was because of something called the Fédération Libération de Québec. And it was supposedly a really active terrorist group, and they were going to do all sorts of nasty things. And it was or one of my lawyer friends said after it was over, and he said what it did is it turned out to be two hippies in a basement with a rusty sawn-off shotgun and some weeping gelignite. Well, it wasn't quite as little as that, but you know, martial law is, we can use the term very loosely, but it is a terrifying thing because suddenly you lose all your rights, absolutely all your rights. And I'm not sure that we're losing our rights, Paul and Mark, but I do think that we're living through a difficult time, which is very similar.
No, we're not losing our rights, but man, as I say, man is a social creature. That's the one thing that we know. Man is a social creature, and I can do Zoom. I can get on the phone. It isn't the same. It just isn't the same. And like you, Keith, when we met in the pub in Lewes, it's a joy. Something to look forward to. You can see your friends. I just think the more it goes on, it's going to sap people, even strong people. And I consider myself a strong person, having the operation that I had, where I was. Just to tell you, Mark, I was 12 seconds dead on the operating theatre a year ago. So I went through all last year. I got COVID. I've had 4 operations. I'm lucky to be alive, but that's it. I'm lucky to be alive. I got COVID over Christmas, but somehow my body has strengthened. It was like having a heavy cold, and I'm 67. So it's
right, Mark. What else have you got for us?
Well, I was just going to sort of finish off on this. We were talking about travel, and there's an article by Ian Martin in the Times today, and he is basically saying, can mass travel ever recover? And the bottom line of it is, although there's a guy in the Wired magazine who's suggesting that levels will recover in 2 or 3 years' time. I mean, some of the debts, the world's airlines need another $70 to $80 billion support to survive. And they've already had 170 billion, which to me sounds like quite a big number. But I mean, it's difficult with all these numbers to put them into perspective. But further down in the article, what he basically says is that I don't think you can argue with it, is that the successful countries have been generally the ones from the Far East. And what they have done is lock down firmly in a sort of martial law type of approach, whether it's Singapore, Hong Kong, China, Vietnam, Korea. Korea had a lot of technology. Australia, has done the same thing. I mean, they've had, I think in some areas of Australia, sort of no communal or no community transmission for like months and months. They have been able to and the Australians are a pretty sociable bunch. So it's interesting, that this can come back, and how human beings are optimistic as a rule. And the more successful you are, probably the more optimistic you are about everything. Witness our friend Mr. Trump, very optimistic about everything. But I think COVID is in a different league to that. But it'll be interesting. I mean, I hope it does come back. I'm not quite sure how it's all going to work. I mean, the cruise industry has been completely decimated. I mean, they have all these fabulous ships, but I mean, I know people who were booking for cruises sort of last year thinking it would all go ahead. And I was saying that's great. But what happens when you discharge one passenger from your 1,000 berth or your 1,000 person cruise liner into Bordeaux, and they've got COVID? What are they going to say? None of you guys, nobody else can come ashore. And the answer to that is, well, probably not. I mean, why would you let, even if they've been vaccinated, why would you let 1,000 people come ashore when we know that there's COVID in there and the vaccine doesn't stop COVID?
One thought that crossed my mind there when you talk about travel is, the number of aeroplanes in the air has been cut dramatically. Are pilots actually going to be retrained? I mean, it's all very well. It's like, well, you're a cyclist, Mark, and people say, oh, well, it's a bike. You never forget. You get back on it and away you go, and you're upright in seconds. But, flying an aeroplane is quite a different thing. And they have to be retrained every time they change from, say, a 747 to a 777. Are we going to have all these pilots retrained to fly safely?
Oh, I would. I mean, I know a couple of pilots, and they fly light aircraft. I mean, they have to go under sort of regular checks. I think they're annual, to check eyesight and do all the stuff that they need to do, stopping the engine mid-flight and all the rest of it. So I would imagine, they'll have to. Well, they would have had to have done these tests anyway, I would have thought. Maybe they'll be more onerous because they haven't flown for 6 months. But on the other hand, you don't know, maybe they're running a rota. So instead of flying 3 times a week, they fly once a week, and that'll allow them to keep all their accreditations going. But I mean, it's an industry that is going to, I mean, I think we'll see lots of businesses failing, but the vulture capitalists will come in and seize the good ones. They'll cut everybody's wages, cut all the staff. It's not exactly a happy story. But I suspect that, I mean, Tim Martin of Wetherspoons is apparently buying up. I'm not suggesting for a moment he is a vulture capitalist, but he, I think, is getting involved in trying to snap up good pubs that are going by the by. So everything will look like a Wetherspoons, maybe. Has Lewes got
Mark,
a
I used to. Yes, it has. Yeah, it has, hasn't it, Keith Wetherspoon?
Sorry,
Keith.
Yeah,
you're still there. You asleep?
Yeah, I'm in my listening mode. The two of you are dominating the conversation, and rightfully so. It's far too deep for me.
By the
So
way,
keep
Mark,
going.
going to come in here, Mark. I used to I used to commute with Tim Martin up to the city, and I didn't know who he was. I had a chat with him, but what's interesting is their business model is very, very good. I'm sure you know that. It's what's sensational, as you know, as a Kiwi. I admire entrepreneurs like them who have actually given jobs, but you're absolutely right. The vultures are going to come in, and Keith knows what I'm going to say. The big corporates like Amazon, etc., with all the cash. That's what worries me. That's not good for the economy. Having 8 or 9 corporates controlling probably most, maybe half the world's GDP. So that's my worry. You're absolutely right about, I think the economy could be devastated, but I don't know how we're going to sort it out. I don't think anyone's got the answer at the moment. Keep to ask me, you're an economist, Paul, you can see the end of it. I can't see the end of it, because that decision that has to be made by every government is health versus economy. It can't be both. So at that time. So actually, I think it was in the Spanish flu, which of course was the worst. 100 million people died worldwide. That's what I call a pandemic. I understand that the Americans did take a tough decision to stop the treatment. So people did die after it was over. But losing 100 million, it sounds callous, but and you lose about 1,000 more because you delayed it. But I don't know what the answer is, because people will die. But some decision has to be made. There's always a finite time, isn't there, Mark? A government has to say, this is what we have to do now. And it's just, to most people, not I think to those probably aren't so well up on the news with us, to them it's like, well, it's dragging on, it's destroying my marriage, blah, 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 got all these problems. You can understand why the people are getting a bit restless. And that's being an ex-policeman and I've been in riots. It's amazing how things can change. I'm not a doom-monger, Mark, like you. I'm an optimist, but you could almost, if you wanted to paint a terrible scenario, see that there'll be policemen on the streets, etc. That would be, obviously, when the economy is going, when people can't get things, people suddenly turn from decent people to burning shops, and that's a fact. People can break down very quickly. That's my worry.
Well, we've had.
Sorry, Mark, go on.
We had the riots going on. I don't know if they happened last night, and it was a surprise. I never really regard Holland as being a particular volatile place.
It's not.
Normally expect it to happen in the banlieues of Paris or something. But and in fact, the press were linking it to a lack of vaccinations, which I thought was just rubbish. I just don't see how that is. But I mean, there's always an element of society that likes to punch up, that wants to go and attack authority. That exists generally in most countries in the world, including Britain. But I agree. I think it's going to. I mean, it could also hasten automation. I mean, Britain has not got a great record in terms of its efficiency. I mean, places like France, or a lot of the major EU countries, Germany, France, Italy, have higher efficiency than we do. And my pet theory, and as you're an economist, Paul, I can run this past you, is that.
Not a very good one.
Well, you tell me what you think. But Britain has a huge love of property. We all have to own a house. If you travel through Berlin, possibly because it was bombed to smithereens in the Second World War, there are so many apartments up. There's a lot of housing done that way. It's a much more economical, I imagine, way to use land and materials. So our banks lend lots of money to people to buy houses. The prices go up. They're a nice safe bet. Occasionally, maybe every 10 years, they fall, like they did after 2008, or we go back to 88, there was a big fall. So what happens is that if the bank has a choice between lending money to a Tim Martin or a Dyson type of character who wants to go and do something a bit different, has a different model, we say, oh, well, we could do that. But in fact, we'd rather lend it to some guy to buy a 3-bed semi because we know the prices are going up. So all the money is poured in, all the banking, the loans are poured into the property market, starving our industrialists of money, and that doesn't help us at all. The prices.
Okay, we'll resume this debate in a minute. Just for me to remind people that it was supposed to be raining at the beginning of the morning this morning, but it wasn't when I came to work at 5:30. But it's going to get brighter throughout the day, and we're going to have a breezy day, but the high of 13, which is the highest it's been for quite some time. So you guys had better get your sun cream out. No, you hadn't. It's not going to get that warm.
I've got my.
Let's just say a good morning to those people that make this this whole operation.
Roundabout has been going for 35 years. We're a dress agency, so what we do is we sell on behalf of people. The customer gets 50% of the price and we take 50%. The online shop is roundaboutlewes.com. I try and update it, daily when things come in. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 9:30 till 4:30. So if you're looking for gifts or a dress for yourself, why not visit?
No, I saw you struggling into your trousers there. Sorry.
That's my. Yeah, I live near the beach, and the people are going in the beach. There's 3 people this morning in wetsuits. I might just do that. There we are. Because right. Yeah. Just to tell you, Mark, I lived in Australia for 9 years. I lived in Australia in Perth, and I thought you were very good about Australia because before you came in, I split with my girlfriend out there, and I'm back here. I was going back to Australia, but I got caught out by COVID. That's the country I'm adopting anyway. And in the Aussies, got it. I spoke to them. I spoke to my lawyer out there, who told me in Perth, a guy was flouting the law. He got, I think you're given 4 warnings by Aussie police, 6 months in jail, 22 years of age. And the whole of the city, that's what one thing about Aussies, they're much more decisive than us. I personally like Australia, sunshine alone, but they're very trusting and nice people. And I just being an ex-policeman, I looked at how the police works there. Much better, much better. And as I say, the Aussies, they can be bolshy bastards. They've got the Ned Kelly in them. But when somebody flouts a law that could put somebody in jeopardy, it's just great. And I think that was Boris's biggest problem, was the 3-week delay in not closing the border. And I think he probably regrets that. That was the big one. Because I understand. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I think you're probably right. In hindsight, I think that it possibly is aligned to the type of society we are, where we're not used to people being draconian, for want of a better word, and it appeared to be a draconian action. And a lot of people would have said, Boris, what are you doing? We don't have a problem, and yet you're shutting the borders. Hindsight, as we all know, is a wonderful thing. It probably was wrong. Or yes, it was wrong. I think there would have been almost an uproar from a large number of people saying, "What are you doing?" Because we're not used to pandemics. The medical people here were preparing for influenza, not for something as nasty as COVID. Whereas the Eastern countries are used to the first version of SARS-CoV. But could we move back to my big theory about our lack of efficiency, banks pumping money into property? Do you think there's anything to that?
There is. I was in banking for 25 years. Yeah, the banks I know, they pulled the drawbridge in to some extent. And if you're a banker and you don't want to make mistakes, then the property side is always a good one, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah.
And so it's the obvious. So banks. It's the old saying, isn't it? They give you an umbrella when the sun's out. And with I guess banking staff have suffered. There'll be layoffs there. I guess they're protecting themselves and their money. As I say, their gesture, I consider it a gesture, the 3-month payback loans, etc. But they've done bugger all apart from that. But yeah, I guess the banks I know will have a much bigger property portfolio. It is safe. I can't think that they can't back the high street, can they? At the moment, they can't back the traditional customers. So property, yeah, let's put it in property. I mean, the boys who are laughing, Mark, as you know, private equity. Private equity is the sector that's actually gaining because they're just buying everything up. They've got the money, they've got the ability, and that's dangerous. So. And don't get me onto the Amazons and that, because I just think Amazon and Google, and it's just ridiculous. It's like dealing with the country, isn't it? When Google speaks or Amazon chief exec speaks, then God, it's like Boris Putin and everybody else puts their papers down and listens, and that's probably true.
Yeah, I mean, just let me ask you about this. Pumping money into property and so on is my late wife was Canadian, and she couldn't understand the obsession that we have in this country about owning property. It's a very loose approach to property in the States. Okay, buy a house, sell it tomorrow. It doesn't have any sort of status attached to it and so on. And yet here she felt that people would actually take money that they should be using for quality of life just so that they could get some property. She never understood it. Was she mad? Oh, don't say that.
No, I think she was right. Sorry, go on.
I think that I think one of the things is the increase. It's a way to make money. You buy your house at £100,000 or £200,000, let's say, 25 years ago, and now it's worth £1 million. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? But I mean, it gets fueled along the way by the banks. We couldn't do this without the banks piling in the money. I think it's interesting at the moment that I think the ratio to buy your average house is on a factor of about 6 or something at the moment. Compare that to, I think it was 1995, it might have been 3 point something. So it's like twice as expensive to buy a house today as it was back, 20 years ago or so, or 25 years ago. So and this is all money that goes into property, and it means you haven't got money for holidays, for cars, But I think it affects probably the low to middle end. The top end, it doesn't affect as much because they've got so much money they can do whatever they want anyway. But part of it, I guess, is because we live in a small island. We've got big restrictions. You compare that to, if you went to someplace like Texas, you drive all day and you're still in Texas, one state of the union. It's a difficult conundrum. We'll never probably solve it. But I do have a productivity chart that I've found, and maybe we don't come off quite as badly as some other places. Let's see if we can get it up full scale. So I mean, it's got Germany at the very top, productivity per hour work, followed by the States and France, very high. Spain comes in quite a chunk below France, and then the United Kingdom. And interestingly, there's Japan coming in under us, and then Portugal, Malaysia, India. What do you think of those figures, Paul? Is that what you would have expected to see?
Well, there's by some measures we're actually almost equal to Germany, not GDP measures, but people forget when one thing I've said all along is that everyone's hit the British economy. We are in a good shape compared to the rest of the world. That's fact. I work for Deutsche Bank, advising them at board level over here. Deutsche Bank is in total disarray. Germany has massive problems. I know that now by going over there. So the point is, I wish people would, this is on your theme, Mark, we shouldn't knock ourselves because actually British economy is doing well in the circumstances. But yeah, you're right. Sorry, what? Could you go back to the original question? I've been doing this since about 7 o'clock. I'm getting tired. Yeah, what was the second part of the question?
This started because I said that my wife questioned the British obsession with owning a house.
Oh no, Mark's point about Japan. Japan.
Well, it was Japan, where Japan was in the.
Yeah.
So there's Japan coming in, sort of midway.
Yeah, that's very low for them.
But I know that their economy is in a different place, I think, for most countries, isn't it? With all the deflation that they had, or was it stagflation?
Well, I worked for 2 Japanese banks. So I worked 7 years for Japanese Bank of Tokyo, and seriously, I've worked for 9 banks over 30 years. Promoted each time. Don't worry, I haven't thrown me out. I ended up as head of corporate banking at ING and just below board level at Westpac. So I was quite a high flyer. The Japanese is quite easy. I know exactly what they do. What they do is cheat in their accounts, and I use that word advisedly. What it is, there's 2 reasons why Japan is special. It's unlike no other economy. First of all, they often they will use, first thing is, the fallback for Japan is that everyone's got savings. And if Japan was ever in 120 million people were ever in trouble, or the government was in trouble, they would all bail them out. And that's something that no other country has. Not a lot of people know that. But on the business of Japan, the accounts we did for one of their, what they did, this is a lovely thing. They bought a Korean shipping company that was ailing, and they didn't get the figures right, and it was shedding £1 million a week. And it was one of Korea's big shipping, and the Japanese thought they'd turn it around. So it was going wrong. So have a guess what they did, Mark. And the accounts are available. I'm not telling Alex School. We're talking about probably about 800 million here. What they did was, in their accounts, they considered that as a running going concern, which normally as a banker you put in a bad debt thing. So guess what? Our people, the FCA and the Japanese, well, the Japanese just say that's fine, etc. But that's what they do. That's what they're capable of doing. In other words, Japan, and I keep on saying this to people, Japan is totally bust, but they're not, because of the way they structure the people giving savings to them and the way they use the Nikkei. There you go. You've heard it from me. And that's nothing. Wow. That was in the 80s. We worked that out. And when I tell people, there's a lot people don't know about the economies of countries. That's what it is. So Japan won't get bust because the country are. Now, can you imagine in England, Boris says we're having a bad year, guys. So Mrs. Carter, 10,000 from Scotland, blah, blah, blah. Can you imagine that? Well, that is how Japan ends at the end of the day. If they're trouble, their saving is their grace, but they're bust. Yeah. But the Japan, you know.
So they're not really oyster and champagne people, though, are they?
Well, not really. No. That's why we're bust. But no, so what you say, Mark, it's interesting. All the points you made, Mark. That chart I hadn't seen, and it's quite unusual. Yeah. Germany at the top, you would expect, probably. Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that the EU and Britain have still to agree exactly what the access is for the city to European markets and vice versa?
Yeah, that's going to come down. Yeah, that's late. That's an interesting one, especially as working in the city. Or not working in the city. That hasn't been sorted out yet. I don't see.
I mean, is that not the elephant in the room?
Yes, it is. Yeah, because the city produces 37% of our GDP. That's by far the highest producer. People like me would believe, everyone calls me, but I was looking after 29 billion at one of the banks, looking after 29 billion. I lost a bit of it, but but that's banking. People have a go at banking, but it is our mainstay industry. It's what makes this country. And the thing is, do you remember when the French and the Germans were trying to get RBS to move over, etc.? It was never going to happen because an American banker who I know quite well they always will defer to London. In my lifetime, London will always be the centre of finance, which it is at the moment. So we've got some strengths. It's just empty at the moment. Everyone's taking their computers home. But I think Mark, you obviously know your stuff, and I wish Keith did. Sorry, Keith, you know your stuff. I just thought you were falling asleep.
But one of the interesting points that you made there was, I remember speaking to somebody from the Economist Intelligence Unit a few years ago, and it was about currency in Southeast Asia. But what he said was the markets rose up and spanked them. And, the sort of manipulation that is being tempted by the EU and actually by us as well is to try and shift the emphasis of markets. I think if they're not careful, the markets will rise up and spank them. The markets tend to do what they want to do, not what politicians want them to do.
Yeah.
How was that for a comment?
Yeah.
No, that's good. I knew you could make one eventually, a good one.
I know. I astonished you. Gentlemen, it's 8:52. We've got 6 minutes left. Let me just take a little bit of time for the people that help us.
Okay.
From Capturing Tales, and we've been open here for about 2.5 years. We specialise in focaccia genovese, which is this focaccia, like that. And my mum and I went to Italy, to Genova, to learn to make focaccia, which is an ancient art. Then we do little salad pots, sauces, fresh pasta, stuff to take home and cook. We try to get locally to support other local businesses. We have a few cocktails in bottles, which is why we're called Catcher and Tails. We're open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, to come by and see us anytime.
My name's Yad and welcome to my shop, Bell & Co. We specialise in mid-century furniture, 50s, 60s and 70s mainly. One of our main ethoses here is very much encouraging people to look at older pieces of furniture rather than buying new or buying flat pack. We're very much environmentally based in trying to encourage people to reuse and reimagine objects, and so we spend a lot of time restoring pieces, reupholstering pieces and bring them back to life generally. They're just fantastic to look at and they're just beautiful items at really, really affordable prices.
Roundabout has been going for 35 years. We're a dress agency, so what we do is we sell on behalf of people. The customer gets 50% of the price and we take 50%. The online shop is roundaboutlewes.com. I try and update it daily when things come in. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 9:30 till 4:30. So if you're looking for gifts or a dress for yourself, why not visit?
Okay, just before final comments from the two of you, just to look at some of the headlines this morning, is Boris Johnson is going to visit Scotland because he wants to boost the troops. Nicola Sturgeon threatening to hold a referendum about independence once again. There is a slight fall in the corona rate, and March will be the earliest date for the children to go back to school. Shops may open in April, restaurants and pubs in May. The weather is getting brighter today, and thank goodness for that, because the economy doesn't look as if it is. Council tax locally, Paul, you'll be interested to know, is they are going to take the maximum increase that they can to pay for more police. So those are the headlines. We've got 3 minutes left. Mark, a quick comment on those headlines.
I think Boris going to Scotland is a very interesting one. Obviously, the union looks like it's on the potentially on the verge of dismantling itself. Scotland wants to go its own way. Boris is not a very popular figure in Scotland. He's too English. I don't think it's going to work overly well. I mean, his popularity figures are probably in single digits. I think they would be better to find somebody Scottish to actually go to it. I think Michael Gove is an Aberdonian originally. He might be a slightly better bet. I don't think he's going to get you might get some rioting on the streets there, Paul, when Boris arrives.
Paul, final word. You've got a minute at the very most.
My mother. No. My mother was an Aberdonian, Mark. So if she was alive today, she'd give Boris hell. But Keith, just to say, well, we were recording live, are we? Because I've got to be careful.
Yes, we are.
About.
No, we're not recording. We are live, but we're recording. You can watch yourself later.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, I've probably said some things that may. No, I think it's okay, but it's all in the past.
No,
but
you
I
haven't
just want
done
to give
anything untoward.
Well, I don't want to, they're after me anyway. This is why I come on the programme.
There is a certain defence being a journalist, Paul, so you can adopt some of the shields.
Yeah.
Any comments on the headline?
Well, it's good to meet Mark. That was the main thing I thought was today. The headline. What say that? I was sleeping when the headline was being discussed. What the news on the council?
Slight fall in the corona rate. Earliest date for school March. Shops in April. Pubs in May. Weather getting brighter. Council tax to pay for extra police.
Well, the only two good things is the weather and the police. Everything else is negative.
It's a bright day. Right, Mark, 8:59. Do you want to take us out?
Well, thanks for coming on, Paul. Enjoyed the chatting with you. And Keith, they're stalwarts as usual. Not sure what you're having for your breakfast there, but I think if we sign off as the clock is about to take over, and Paul, you're going to be jumping into those swimmers and running to the beach, no doubt.
That's
well, actually, the news headlines have upset me so much it's a tummy pill. Paul, thanks. This is your first outing with us. We'll see many more. This is our new experiment. We're beginning to get on top of it, and there are some people that like it, some people that don't. But Mirador Television has always been like Marmite. Some people love it, some people hate it, but nobody ever forgets it. So until tomorrow, thank you, and we'll see you, Mark, in the morning.
Yeah.
Till then, toodle pip.
See you, Mark. Good to.